Welcome to Hot Topics here at Contemporary Black Voices. And today we have a real hot topic. We're going to talk about Candace Owens, a hero to the mega group and a disgrace to Black people. And I'm going to show a little clip here, and you'll see why I'm saying that, and we will discuss after the clip.
White people were the first to formally put an end to slavery. In 1833, Britain was the first country in the history of the world to pass a Slavery Abolition Act. They were quickly followed by France, who in 1848 abolished slavery in her many colonies. Then, of course, came the 13th Amendment in the United States Constitution. After centuries of human slavery, white men led the world in putting an end to the abhorrent practice. That includes the 300,000 Union soldiers, overwhelmingly white, who died during the Civil War. Now, am I saying that this makes white people better than anyone else? Of course not. My purpose here is to simply tell the truth, and the truth is that human history is complicated. No one, regardless of skin color, stands guiltless. Yet today we are never told to consider the murderous Persian Empire or the cannibalism of indigenous tribes of North and South America or the heinous actions under the imperialistic Muslim, Chinese, Mongol, or Japanese empires, to name just a few. Instead, we're told that slavery is a white phenomenon. And like all persistent lies, this lie spawns a bunch of other lies. On social media, I come across extraordinary depictions about how Africans lived like pharaohs before Europeans came and laid waste to their paradise. I wish any of this were true, but it's not. It's a fantasy. The truth is that Africans were sold into slavery by other Black Africans, and in many cases, sold for items as trivial as gin and mirrors. Whites didn't go into the interior and round up the natives. They waited on the coast for their Black partners to bring them Black bodies. The stark reality is that our lives had very little value to our ancestors. Here's the third thing you need to know. If you think slavery is a relic of the past, you're wrong. There are some 700,000 slaves in Africa today. Right now.
Okay,
that's the lowest estimate I could find.
Please, cut it.
Other sources say there are many more. For context, that's almost twice as many.
White people put it in to slavery. Who started it?
Okay, when we talk about slavery, we're talking about slavery in Africa, or we're talking about the starting of the transatlantic slave trade.
I think we're talking about the transatlantic slave trade.
Okay.
And another issue, they talk about slavery in other countries, but oftentimes captured warriors were made into slaves, and it was not looked upon as a demeaning position.
Right.
What this country did that no other country's done is they made the color of our skin demeaning and not slavery. Because if it had only been slavery after 1865, there'd have been no problem. So what the heck is she talking about? Please, somebody tell me.
Candace, first of all, the video came from PragerU. And if you listen to our last discussion about DEI being eliminated, the Republicans are really on a steadfast agenda of revising history. This is nothing but revisionist history. And Candace knows it. I know she knows it. She knows it. But revisionist history, and to talk as adamantly as she's saying, she's making some money off of that. I've got to wonder whether she truly believes it or she believes in the money that she's making off of some of the statements that she makes. It's a revisionist history because there's a lot of stuff that's not being said on that one video.
You raise the issue, does she know it? If she knows it and does it anyway, that makes it worse. I mean, you could almost buy, it's not a good thing, but you can almost buy ignorance. She doesn't know any better.
Well, she has said that racism doesn't exist. interesting though that her argument back when she was in high school, there was an issue on her campus where she had to file a lawsuit with the help of the NAACP because of racial discrimination. So she understands racism because she used it in her to win a case.
I would imagine she's not married to a black man.
No.
Because I couldn't imagine any black man putting up with that.
Her husband's father is a lord in the House of Parliament in the United Kingdom, because she's also said on another video that the British colonization of Africa was a net positive.
Positive, yeah. So how do we deal with someone like that? I mean, what do we do? She's a disgrace.
Well,
Isn't she a do you all agree with me?
It becomes a question: are you being invited to the barbecue, or are you being invited to the high tea?
And she goes to the
high tea,
right?
But go ahead.
No, I'm just saying. How do you deal with someone who is purposely misstating history, trying to revise history, and who has repeatedly, over and over and over again, said statements that were detrimental to the people from which she came? And so the question: do you ignore her? How do you handle someone like that? And that's my biggest question. Like anyone who's getting a history lesson from Candace Owens, they're already in trouble to begin with.
Well, there's a lot of people like that. All the Trump people.
Well, I don't know if this person I'm about to mention now is a Trump person. Reverend Amos Brown,
Oh my God,
the president of the NAACP in San Francisco.
Yes.
Now, I don't even know who he is, okay? Didn't even know who he is. He's got to be in his 70s, 80s. He's up there in age, okay? Now, we already know there is a push across the country about reparations for foundational Black Americans, okay? And we already know that in San Francisco, there is a movement it's still a movement, to give qualified Black Americans in San Francisco reparations. Now, the proposed amount is $5 million, okay? What does this guy come out of nowhere and say? The NAACP in San Francisco opposes a cash payout. Really? Really? He's talking about we want public housing, we want programming for our children, we want health, and he's talking about one sector of the Black community, right? So he was pulled out of somewhere. Mainstream media has lifted him up, put him out there for all the world to see. And the fact that he said that the NAACP, although it was in San Francisco, when you hear NAACP, you think about the entire network, opposes a cash distribution for reparations. You know that he was paid to say something crazy like that.
Well, at least he has, I'll give him not much credit, a little credit. At least he's saying some of the programs, like housing and stuff like that. This Owens lady holds no hope in terms of her being of any value to us at all. At all. I mean, she's worse than, in the media, she's worse than Clarence Thomas on the Supreme Court.
They may be the same.
But you think they're running even?
They're running even. What we don't know is, I'm just going to call him Clarence because I can't even call him Judge. Clarence is doing some behind-the-scenes stuff that could be detrimental to Black folks, okay?
You think so?
Oh, yeah. Him and Mrs. Thomas.
I know his wife would.
And Candace is out here running wild, running her mouth. And then you got Reverend Brown. And I don't understand why he even made that statement because, first of all, he's a pastor, okay?
That's why.
And no, I'm going to go deeper than that. And anybody from my home church, just go with me on this one, okay? What pastor would say that a cash distribution of possibly $5 million they would not support? Because just think about the tithes that church can get.
I bet most of the people in black people in San Francisco don't agree.
Right.
Definitely.
So I don't understand these are probably black leaders that are pulled out of the abyss to quote unquote represent us, and they don't represent us. They don't represent us at all.
Well, that goes back to our earlier discussion. We don't have any leaders that are really representing us. But the MAGA group has Candace Owens, who they're throwing out as representing us.
Mm-hmm.
She's volunteering to be the leader that Chris has been asking for.
Yeah.
So, Chris, there's your leader, buddy.
But it's sad. It's really sad that we having these so-called leaders really, again, making statements, doing actions that are an entire detriment to the entire black community. And when does it stop? Where does it stop? Do we need to just go ahead? I mean, how do you cancel Candace Owens?
We can't, because she's not really a part of our community. Her videos aren't speaking to us. Her videos are speaking to the majority community. And so, and whoever, if you watch that video, the transatlantic slave trade was ended by the Industrial Revolution. Also, what Candace is leaving out is the fact that white men started the transatlantic slave trade.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And the concept of another thing she's leaving out, the concept of slavery prior to the transatlantic slave trade was different. It was more that of an indentured servant who eventually had the ability to become a member of the family, to rise in stature in the community and in the villages. It's a completely different thing. And so all of her misinformation, she's taking bits and pieces and throwing bits and pieces together and completely rewriting history and what it was. And so I just had to, if you watch that video, I just had to say that and throw that out there and provide some context and a little bit of correction of what this woman was saying.
And those 300,000 or more, much more than that, soldiers that died Civil War, they did not die to free black folks. They died to save the Union.
Right.
That's what it was all about, saving the Union. So, you know, that's really not true. And the fact that the 13th Amendment freed the slaves, but then we had Jim Crow.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't discuss that. We had sharecropping, and we had prisoners.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Blacks were just being arrested and sent to work on a plantation. What would happen? You'd get arrested. Caleb Alexander would get arrested.
Mm-hmm.
White guy would come and bail you out. Now, you are obligated to work for him until you pay off that bail. But guess what? You never pay it off.
Never pay it off, right.
So it's just another form of slavery. So what the heck is this clown talking about? You know, I don't want to call her a Negro, and I'm going to stop calling people like that Negroes, because Negroes were strong, powerful people before the word black. During the Harlem Renaissance, they had the whole new Negro movement. And Langston Hughes, W.E.B. Du Bois, all these folks were known as Negroes. So these folks don't even, should even be put in that category as Negroes. So maybe before someday we'll come up with another word for them.
You know, what's really sad is, I think that black parents, you really need to start going to textbook committee meetings at your school district. You need to get involved, because there is a push to revise history. For example, I was reading where one state, I think it must have been Florida. Everything's happening in Florida right now, where they are revising the history about Rosa Parks. So the current textbook says Rosa Parks went on a bus, she sat in the seat, and she was taken off the bus because of the color of her skin. Okay? Then they said, we don't want to hear that anymore. So Rosa Parks was sitting on the bus because of the color of her skin, got moved off. Or did I already say that? white people took her off of the bus because she was not sitting in the correct area for black folks. We don't want to hear that anymore. So here is the new and approved revision. Rosa Parks was removed from the bus because she refused to move.
And I want to say this is why the subject that we covered earlier is so important. Having DE and I is everywhere as far as the committees that and that choose the textbooks, that choose what goes into the textbooks. Having that diversity is critical. Having it in the classrooms is critical. Having it on the school boards that choose the textbooks is critical, and this is and that's why it's so important, because it does mitigate what is known as interest convergence, where the majority of the folks get to decide who has what resources, who gets the funding for the approved classrooms, what teachers go in what schools, and so this is why DEI is so important. It really is.
You know, I'm going to share an experience that I had when I was in elementary school teaching. It's not segregated, it was an integrated school. And it was Black History Month, you know, my month, okay? Mm-hmm. So one of my non-Black students came up to me and said, Dr. Chadwell, what was it like to be a slave at the bottom of a ship? So what I did was, while they were at PE or whatever, I went ahead and rearranged the entire classroom, had the desk line of, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? And then I had a table, because I did have a child. This was second grade, and he was a big one, so I put a table out there for him. Then I had the lights off when the kids came back in the room. Mm-hmm. So these kids didn't mind getting on the floor. So I had them all scoot in under the desk, preferably 2 students at a time under the desk. And for my larger child, I just was praying that he was able to fit up under that, right? So we only did that for a couple of minutes, then had everybody rearrange a classroom and asked me, now tell me, how did you feel? Okay, how did you feel? Oh, I felt uncomfortable. I didn't like so-and-so breathing on me. I said, that's what it felt like to be at the bottom of a slave ship.
Right.
Went on to the next lesson, right? Kids were, they were hi-hoing, right? You're having fun and stuff. The next day, I get pulled in the office, right? A parent said that I scared the students. I said, really? I mean, they were in their moment. They were on the floor like they like to be. The lights were turned off. No one was crying. It was about a 2, 3, 5-minute lesson, and we went on to the next lesson. So a lot of parents have a fear of what's going on in the history lessons.
And I think many parents can be a detrimental to children learning. And the House of Representatives just passed this new bill, Parents' Rights Bill. And thank God the Senate is not going to even take it up.
Right.
But can you imagine what it'd be like to be a teacher if that bill passed? Your situation would triple, where a parent coming in and challenge you. Yeah. And here's the other problem. When a parent challenges the teacher loses all control over that child. All control over that child, because they know they have the parent that's going to back them up. And so I made a decision a long time ago that I would not teach elementary school, junior high school, or high school. It had to be college because of those very reasons. But here's what's happening. Colleges are coming almost like the other. Challenge what you're teaching in the classroom. Wow. And if they pass this, well, they're not going to pass it. Right. But think of the mentality of these guys and women in the House of Representatives could even consider passing something like that.
But they're serious. They're serious.
So we got that. We got the minister in San Francisco. We got Candace Owens. Then we got Clarence Thomas voting down anything that's relevant and good for Black people. Man, Are we going back to 1920s?
Well, you know, the old say when I said earlier, the more we change, the more things stay the same.
So what do we do? Is there anything we can do? You guys have rejected. I wish Chris was here so he could defend his leader. So you all seem to reject the idea of a leader, and correct me if I'm wrong. You are leaning more towards social media as being the
No, I'm leaning
influencer.
towards a more of a contemporary style leadership. A small group. There are leaders in every community. And just the way we can communicate this dispersed form of leadership. I think it probably is more relevant in the times we find ourselves in.
Let me ask you this question. I was thinking about some of the responses we're getting. Are we at a point where the young no longer learn from the elders? And is it that the elders have to give in to the young and let the young lead?
Well, I think the elders can teach moral leadership. The young are going to take it upon themselves to teach the technology and the new applications, and it's you're gonna have to learn. They're gonna have to know both.
That's not necessarily good. I mean,
But you know, if you really think about it, I know we have a lot of people who are younger than us. There is still a lot to learn where it's two-way. It's a two-way process. I feel that I have a lot to offer, and you guys have a lot to offer me. So we need to start listening to one another instead of saying because you reach a certain age, you can't do anything. I'm going to tell you right now, okay? I have done Ironman competitions at my age, and I challenge anybody younger than me to do it. Okay, it's not the easiest thing to do, but you learn. I can share experience and share knowledge about how to take care of yourself on those routes. So we still have a lot of two-way communications that we can still share, we can still learn, and just keep going because it's going to take a whole village on this one.
yeah. And I was just thinking about Nikki Haley running for president, where she's come out and said anyone over 75 should have a competency test.
Oh wow!
Can you believe that?
Wow.
I mean, we know
Was she talking about Trump?
she's talking about Trump and Biden and Biden. Yeah. But you know, I don't buy this idea. Well, let me say, in other cultures, the elder are considered the wise, and the youth have to listen to the elders. That doesn't seem to happen with us.
Right.
Nope,
Not in this country.
because we put in. I know we're about to end because we spend too much time saying at a certain age you can do this and this and this and this when it's not the case. It's not the case.
And so, what can we expect to come of all this? Let's go back to Candace Owens, and let's go back to the Reverend, and let's go back to Clarence Thomas. Man, are we on the down
No, we just need to
of history?
We need to just uplift those people who are for the good of the community at large, and not say negative things about those who are doing good for the community at large, because we've got too many people out there that the mainstream media and the powers to be are pulling up to be the voices of the people, and it's not the same.
It would be great. You know, she wouldn't do it, but if Candace Owens would come on our show and be challenged, but she couldn't take that, could she?
No.
No way.
No.
No way.
No.
Well, I guess we're ready to close here. So, how about some final words? Start with
Wow.
Caleb.
Oh my goodness. So as far as the hot topic, the final, I mean, just a little bit about what we're talking about. We're in trouble. And I tell you why we're in trouble. It's 16% literacy in fourth grade in as far as reading, 18% in math. By the time they get eighth grade, we're at 13% competency in math and 16% competency in reading. So we got some work to do. So that's what I have to say about that.
Sharon?
You know, there are a lot of implications associated with today's show. Was it an exciting show? Not necessarily exciting, but I think it was very, very informative. Overall, I know that there is a push for Black Americans, especially foundational Black Americans, to not vote because we are not getting rewarded those things that we should be rewarded. And I agree. But by the same token, if we do vote, we need to be aware as to who is running and what type of things they could do for us if given they have the opportunities. We need to be more aware as to who is sitting, who is running, and keep our ears open as well as to empty promises.
Okay. Well, what we're going to do, I know a lot of what we do is negative subjects. So we're going to do something positive. Mother's Day is, I believe, the second week in May. And so starting next week, we want you all to send us some of the fond memories you have of your mother. And you can send it to contemporaryblackvoices.com. Is that right? And we're going to read them at the end of the show, all the way up to Mother's Day. And then after Mother's Day, if this goes well, then we'll do it for Father's Day.
We should do it for Father's Day.
We will do it for Father's Day. So please think of that fond memory that you have of your mother. I could start right now saying I had one when I was 12 years old, and we had a little not whole league team, and my father would leave the car for my mother to take us to play the not whole league, and she'd follow us all into that car. And my favorite spot was in the trunk. But we'd always get there, and we survived it, and we had a great time. So send us, make it no more than, 25 words, folks, you think? Is that good? No more than 25 words. So we can read it and share it with all our viewers. And we will start that next week. And so in the meantime, this is Contemporary Black Voices telling our story, our way.